right, everybody. Hello, hello. It is Sunday again, and so it is time for this week's episode of The Designer's Den. And I am super excited today to welcome my guest, Alex Kuppinger. Alex has done, a lot of work. Was one of the people that I originally knew from the DMs Guild in the way back days, doing some design before I guess doing everything on the DMs Guild was popular. And it just kind of branched out and does a little bit of everything now. But you know what? I'm actually gonna let Alex introduce himself a little better than I do. I'm always awkward at introductions. Thanks for being on the show today.
Okay, well, if you're hoping that I would not do an awkward introduction,
You know,
gonna be
awkward.
disappointed.
Awkward is like the name of the game. Tangents is the subtitle.
We're on the same page on that one then. Yeah, so I mean, I got started on the DMs Guild, and now I just do a bunch of writing I'm not allowed to talk about.
Yes.
That's my story.
Well, um, you know, maybe we can walk it back a little. How did you first get into tabletop RPGs and content creation?
Um, Started playing D&D late in like high school. Um, Kind of kept up with it throughout college, playing basically all 3.5. It was kind of really like a really good peak heyday for 3.5. All the splat books, were basically out by that point, and that was the popular thing. My friend group never really did fourth edition; it just never caught on with us.
That's okay.
Uh,
It doesn't exist.
it, Head empty, no 4E thoughts here. Um, and then I actually kind of fell off of D&D for a while because you get away from the college group, and then you don't necessarily have an RPG group. And then when fifth edition came out, I really wanted to get back into it, and I think I had a lot of friends like from college and stuff
Mm-hmm.
who were very interested in seeing what the new edition looked like because it looked really exciting. Um, so I started up a campaign. Worst campaign I've ever run. I was trash. We were trash. Like it was a mess, a
But it was fun,
terrible mess.
kind of.
Oh, no, it was actually just bad all the way through. It was genuinely disaster. But I still liked 5e, and I kept going with it, and started running like a different campaign, and started kind of putting some ideas together for adventures. I ended up just deciding to randomly throw one on the DMs Guild about a year after the site was made,
Mm-hmm.
um, and of all people, Jeff Stevens reached out to me and said, "Hey, this little adventure that you've put up, because I just had it on like the default template that they have on the site."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, I think there's some really cool stuff here. Like, I think you've got a lot of potential or whatever, young man," or whatever he said to me. Um, and he like gave me a bunch of advice of like how to kind of get in contact with the community, like on Twitter and stuff like that. Um, and said, "Hey, I'm doing like this little um, supplement called like Encounters in the Savage Cities. Do you want to just write like a little encounter for it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And then kind of from there, it all just snowballed, and I started getting way more into guild stuff, like caring more about like the craft of like the layout and the art,
Mm-hmm.
getting together with more creators and doing more kind of collaborative work. Um, and that's kind of I just kind of kept going on the DMs Guild for a long time, and here and there after like within the last couple of years started getting some little freelance bits from like smaller companies or publishers and things, and now basically all my writing time is just kind of dedicated to just like freelance stuff with various publishers.
And this is not your full time job though. You've got a day job, a muggle job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's how most of us are. That's how most of us are. This is what we do in all of what would be free time because we don't actually know what free time means anymore.
Not familiar with the term.
Yeah.
Free writing time is more like what that is.
Yeah, somebody asked me what I do in my spare time, and I'm like, spare?
Sleep, I guess. Is that what that counts? Like sleep counts as spare time. Like that's what that's for, I think.
Yeah, it's the time that you can steal from, so it's spare.
Right.
But it's actually kind of interesting that your story also starts with Jeff Stevens, and it's at this point almost comical to me how many people I've had on the show who are like, so either like one of my first five things was Jeff being like, okay, but let's do another thing, okay?
Hmm.
And then you're like, oh, somebody liked it. Oh, okay. So I'm like doing the thing now. Which is kind of how I started too. I did one little thing, and then Jeff contacted me for Adventure Encounters in the Savage Jungles, and I did a thing there. And then somebody randomly on the internet on a review site gave me a glowing review of that, and I was just like, I guess I'm okay at this.
Right.
And yeah, and now it's just everything. It's not everything. It's one of like 12 things, but uh, but yeah, so a little bit differently than what some people do. So the product that we have to talk about today, well, it's not really like a specific product so much as like another game entirely that isn't D&D. Um, so we are going to chat a little bit today about Lancer, which is an entirely separate game, kind of sci-fi. I'm just gonna read the little blurb because people always
Sure.
explain their game better than I do. So Lancer imagines a future where a survivor humanity has spread to the stars after weathering terrible ecological collapse on Earth, the end of the Anthropocene as a consequence of unrestrained consumption and poor stewardship, and 5,000 years later, humanity lives in the wake of a desperate revolution, one where the victorious radicals now manage the galaxy they've won. So all the way at the beginning of that sounds very like real life until we get to the point where we've done something better. Then it becomes fantasy.
Yeah. It's like, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Um, the SpaceX program is getting out there now, so maybe there's hope. We might not get to the stars. So what is it about Lancer specifically that draws you to it? And what about it would you recommend to other people?
So my group has been like running RPGs and stuff even through COVID. And a lot of us are in different cities and like different time zones and stuff now. So we were doing D&D for a while. And I kind of wanted to give our we have a few people in the group who are kind of forever DMs, myself included. So I got to play for a little bit, which is really good. But I want to give our DM a break. So I have been talking up Lancer to my group for a long time. I backed it when it was a Kickstarter and got finally got my hard copy of the book this past year. I was really excited for it. Like um, it's a good looking PDF, but like it's really good to have a physical copy. Um, and I kind of sold everybody on the concept, like big mech fighting system, kind of drew people in. So we had kind of like a stopping point in our D&D game, and everyone said, what do we want to do next? And everyone's like, yeah, we can give Lancer a try.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and the experience with it, I think, has been really good. Everybody in the group is like a full like most of their time has been that I've played games with them has all been D&D, and some of them were people back from like 3.5 days. Some of them are like have only really ever played fifth edition. So it's kind of curious and a little nervous about how we would all shift from D&D to a game uses basically a 1d20 and maybe a couple d6s at a time, and that's the only dice you ever roll in this
Okay.
game.
That's not, it's not a major shift then as far as like the tools you have available. And it's
Right.
beautiful. So I had the cover up for a little bit there. Beautiful, like you said, PDF. The cover has a lot going on.
Hmm. And the like the art and stuff inside just gives so much personality
Hmm.
to all the different like mech, what they're called mech frames, but like the different bodies of types of mech that you can use in the game. There's literally dozens and dozens of them, and every one of them just feels like they have their own identity, and the game just brings them to life in this really really good way. So I was really happy with how well everybody got used to this system very, very quickly, despite the fact that it was so different from D&D.
Hmm.
It has some similar concepts, like on your turn, you move as much as you're like allowed to move. It uses like space value, like you can your mech frame of this, this type can move 3 spaces on its basic move.
Okay.
Um, but instead of D&D, where it's like you've got your action, um, in this game, it's you have either a selection of different full actions, or you take 2 quick actions. So the just the level of choice there, I thought could be really really daunting for someone. Where in D&D, it's like if you're a fighter, you basically run up and hit with your sword. If you're a wizard, sure you've got a selection of spells, but you're casting like one spell on your turn. But all these different choices of like stabilize, barrage, quick, doing a quick attack, doing a tech attack, like all these different options. I was really worried that um, it would be a little overwhelming for people who are coming from D&D. And the very first like kind of mission or whatever that I ran, within the first session, people were getting very comfortable with like the tools at their disposal and how the actions and stuff worked. It was really great, and so we've just gotten more and more chances over the last couple of months to start exploring the system more and like leveling up and just doing all kinds of weird fun stuff with it.
And I will say the one thing that I noticed pretty quickly, at least in the PDF, that's different from 5e, which is what a lot of people play, is that it defaults to a hex grid.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people feel they feel the feels about hex grids, whether that's positive or negative. But for reference, it says hex or squares. You can use squares if you feel really awkward. But yeah, no, I actually did kind of like the as you say the variety there between having the quick actions versus the full actions. It kind of felt a little to me like how Shadow of the Demon Lord or even Delve have the fast turn versus slow turn.
Hmm.
Instead of like I say proper initiative, but whatever initiative you want to do is proper. They're all proper.
Yeah.
Instead of standard D&D initiative, and so you can decide to do these little things that don't have as much impact, but you can do more of them.
Hmm.
Um, or you can take your turn, think it through, be methodical, and do this big, huge thing. And I kind of, yeah, like it says, actions that require full attention, firing a barrage, performing field repairs. Because unless you're some kind of mechanical genius, you are not performing repairs quickly.
Right.
um, so yeah, there's definitely a lot to this game that can appeal to people, and I love space. Just like that's the long and short of it. I love space and I love everything about space. I also love aviation and planes because it's the closest thing to space on this world. um, so anything that's got like the mechs, the spaceships, the all of that, like I'm automatically like drawn to it. Um, like I fucking love Burn Bright.
I
Um,
still I still need to like really dip into that system during all my free time. But like I still really want to like look more into that system because I know how I've heard the concepts of like how it works mechanically are just really really interesting.
yeah,
And I've heard good things from a lot of people about it.
and I forget the name of the starter adventure, but like it's really well done, explaining like the different the races and their abilities, or they don't call them races, they call them something else. And then just like the ship to ship combat is well done, which is always a complaint about anything that has ships.
A lot of RPG systems, yeah, yeah,
Starfinder, number one question on boards. What do you do to make the ship to ship combat better in yours? Because I don't like it.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot that's similar about Lancer to D&D, in that, they have a lot of the same conditions and terms that you're used to. They maybe work a little differently, but I think, like you said, for most people, it would be a fairly easy transition. And I went ahead, and in the chat, have the link there to get the quick start and some more information about it. And another cool thing about this game is of course, it's an indie game. So picking it up and supporting it is supporting a small publisher. In this case, um, Tom Parkinson of Massive Press, and also Miguel Lopez. So they're both U.S. based, Atlanta and Portland, and so I think that's something that's super important, especially has become more and more important as we've been in the middle of this pandemic, is to support small local gaming companies.
And for a really long time, the only way you could pay for this game after the Kickstarter finished was going on like their itch page and buying the full version, like the full digital version. But actually, between the time when we scheduled this and now, they've actually finished launching their website where you can now buy a hard copy, because it used to be just for Kickstarter backers only. Like they got their fulfillment for their pledges or whatever, and then there were no more print copies for a long time. And I think it's really interesting with this game. The free quick start, like the free version of the core book, has everything you need to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are not like, this is not like the basic 5e rules where you are missing out on a bunch of subclasses or something. Like every single like player option and stuff, like it is in that free book.
And
Um,
then I imagine the full book just expands upon all of those ideas and gives you
a
a
lot
lot
of the
more
setting
lore.
stuff,
Yeah, a lot more
yeah, a lot
lore.
of setting stuff in there. Um, and I can talk all day about how good the player app, or like the game app is that they developed for it, but like that has all the stuff in it as well. And despite that, once they launched their website, like half my players in the campaign bought a copy of the print book when it was available. Like despite the fact that we've been going for a couple of months now without needing, with access to everything that they needed, like they still bought a copy of the book. And I think that's a really good example of just like how well
Yeah,
this system has sold itself like to our group.
that
Um,
definitely does speak to it. If people have everything they need to play it from a free asset, and then they still go out there and they're willing to plop down their hard-earned cash to get more. I I actually can't find their website. That's what I was looking for over here.
oh, I gotcha.
I'm like, I've got their itch, and then six more things that redirect to their itch.
I think it's actually just lancerrpg.com.
They need to work on their
Yeah, I think.
SEO, because that's what I searched was Lancer RPG.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a friendly, constructive feedback we can give them. It is indeed, and that redirects to Massive the Netafly. Okay, there we are. So here's their website. Then, if you want to pick that up, the website even looks nice. So they've got a lot of love and care into this, and kind of built out a world.
Mhm.
And yeah, the art, God, the art is just so good.
Are just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It-
Um, yeah. So speaking of building out worlds and really just kind of making something great, that's kind of a big thing that we talk about here on this is design. And when you're building out worlds or creating your adventures or your subclasses or whatever, like, what is your like general design philosophy? Do you have like certain themes that you steer towards, certain things that you hate, a way that you sit down and design from your blank piece of paper and or blank whiteboard? Or are you one of those weirdos who types directly into the computer and never writes anything anywhere else?
Um, a little column A, little column B.
Yeah.
Um, I I do a lot of like really vague note building. I'm a big fan of having just like blank piece of paper, like clipboard, uh, like, and I'll just have like some little bits and pieces and notes and things like that. But like I don't have like full sentences. I've got like just
No.
these little things out there in the ether.
Yeah.
And then
No.
eventually I will
Nobody
sit
writes
down.
full sentences in prep work.
Right. And eventually I will sit down, and when I actually sit down and type it, like that's probably going to be just about the draft. Like I don't like write out a draft and then go back and change a whole bunch. It's like, listen, no, once it's there, like that's pretty much finished product for me. And then like if I end up with a couple of like, oh, correct this little thing, or like here's a little red line or something here, then that's
Right.
just part of the process. But
For a lot of people who do the writing out, so I've got my example that I like to show here. So I wrote a what is it, a 6-hour adventure, Dreams of the Red Wizards 04 Foreign Affairs. And here's my original draft. Here's one page. There's some maps, and here's the rest of it. And as you can see, there are no sentences.
yeah.
Um, I can still follow along with what it says, but I handed it to someone else who'd read the adventure, and they're like, "How did you get from? I'm gonna guess this is A, and the other must be like column in B." I'm like, "Yeah, there's a lot between the concept and
The
the
final.
the final."
Yeah.
There were probably, I don't know, about 20 square feet worth of scribbles on whiteboards involved in that too.
I should get a whiteboard.
Yes, whiteboards.
That'd be really good.
Um,
Oh.
I can get on this soapbox and talk about whiteboards for a while, but I firmly believe in them because you can quickly doodle it down, whatever. I have a 3x5 whiteboard, a big piece of glass on my wall behind me in my office, and then I have a little 2x3 whiteboard that technically can hang on the wall, but I just kind of tote it around the house. And then I bought a bunch of that contact paper, stick on whiteboard, like a roll of it. And so I have like a good another 10 feet of whiteboard just stuck on the wall. So my office is just like whiteboards.
90% whiteboard. Yeah.
I also have a mirror in my entryway. Mirrors are also whiteboards, in case anybody didn't know. So, if you're one of those people who needs a note in the morning, so write it on your mirror. You'll see it when you brush your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth in the morning, I can't help you.
Then you got bigger problems to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everybody goes to the bathroom in the morning, so it's great. But yeah, so you sit there, you doodle some notes, you do some drafts, you go back through, you redline it, you probably throw a few versions of it in the garbage can if you're anything like me.
A lot of my garbage canning happens at like the bullet point phase. So like there'll be a lot of like, nope, no, 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 forget that. No, just something else. This is stupid.
Yeah,
Scrap that.
so a lot of mine is kind of there in the middle. I have my bullet points, and then I'm going in to flesh it out, and I'll get like one section fleshed out, and then I'll go back and read it and be like, no, not like this.
I
um,
do a lot of stewing where it's like I make that bullet point type thing. Like I'll make all those notes, and then I'm like making the draft in my head basically, and like trying to think through all of the ideas I've just written down, and I'm trying to kind of play through the adventure or like the concept as a process internally, and then that's a lot of times that's when I'll be thinking about something and be like, hang on, wait, what if the players just do this obvious solution instead of, you know, always like the classic like, yeah, but what if they just shoot the villain in the head thing, where it's like, oh, I can't have a 10-minute monologue here. What if they just shoot him? Like,
yeah,
well, but like that kind of thing. Like but what if terrible players, or like what if players do the obvious thing that they probably should do instead of my
then
ideal of what they
yeah, then you've always got to have a
could
backup,
do.
right? In his pocket,
Right.
he has a scroll which also contains the monologue.
Right.
Because, everyone just carries around their inner villain monologue with them, right?
I would probably have to pull that out during the monologue and being like, okay,
Oh,
did I
let,
miss any of
let me make
these
sure I get all
or
the important points. Hold on.
right?
Yes, that actually would be me as a villain. I'd get like halfway through my sentence and be like, I know I'm forgetting something. Hold on. Flip, 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 flip. Ah, yes.
Right, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Oh my god, I can't believe they. God.
But yeah, as you pointed out though, the pesky players, they never do what you expect them to do. So, how do you deal with things where you're writing where, okay, let's say for example, you've decided to write a mystery. Um, Note to people who've never written before, don't start with a mystery.
Note to people who have written, reconsider if you're thinking about writing a mystery.
But how do you make sure that they get all the information that they're going to need?
Especially with God, especially with D&D.
Because not everyone is a Nancy Drew out there. Just
Right,
sees it. Sherlock Holmes can't play D&D because he's obviously cheating.
right. Um, I mean, I kind of think about writing mystery stuff the same way I approach like writing horror for an RPG, which is you can't force an experience
Right.
that players don't want to have. You can't account for everything, but you can account for reasonable trends of behavior. Like the more experienced you are as a writer, the more you're going to kind of understand how people are going to maybe approach something. Um, Ignore the fact that you're writing for an RPG. Like for a mystery, a lot of times I'm just like, yeah, the way that I've approached it for mystery type stuff that I've written is um, the most important clues they need or the most important information that they need to keep them moving forward or going somewhere else does not require a roll. It is
Oh
something that
no.
they can observe just by being there. But if you want to have additional layers of mystery or side plots or red herrings or things like those are things that you can gate behind various types of checks and stuff. But like you need to have a baseline that will keep people moving forward.
And
Um,
I think that's great advice, and I think that's something that a lot of people fall prey to is putting that must-have information behind some sort of paywall, as it were. You've got to succeed on this investigation check of a DC 15, and literally no one in the party has an intelligence above 8.
right.
Like,
Yeah. And but like that's the exact kind of, you know, the same thinking of, oh, what if the players just like try to fight this person instead of letting the monologue? Like that's the same approach.
mm-hmm.
It's like they will, you know, what if the players choose to play characters with an 8 intelligence and no proficiency investigation? Like that's a general player choice that like you got to think about that. Like you're writing this for who knows what kind of adventuring party. At one point, I wrote a mystery called Sharn City of Blood, and that was like it's been pretty like people seem to like that one. But like one of the things was, um, hey, if your players are having trouble like getting to a certain point here or like getting pointed in the right direction, here's like a confrontation, like here's a basically an optional side encounter, like here's a confrontation that they might have. um
and
and,
I
and the notes for that, I think I wrote like if they're having trouble getting pointed in this direction, this will point them in that direction. If your players are in the right direction but they're just bored with the RP stuff and they want to have like a little scrap in the street or whatever, like you think it's time for like a little bit more action or something, yeah, throw that in there. Like I'm not your DM. You the DM are the one reading this, so like whatever you think is going to get your players on track or keep them engaged with the story, like yeah, here's a tool for that.
and I think that's great. And Joe Rasso brings up a good point too that you always see multiple ways to stumble on the same clues. But I kind of like the like you said, the sidebar with like, what do I do if they're just not getting it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's some options. or yeah, or like alternate things. Okay, so they're just over searching this house. Okay, you've got the burglar. They've startled him now. He's darting out. He's obviously got a thing in his hand.
Hmm.
That's the thing you need. Um, or something really obvious like that. I think that's important in not just mysteries, but like you said, horror or anything where like you really need them to understand a certain thing, a certain feeling, a certain whatever that you want evoked. Like putting in sidebars as a designer are like it's you standing there talking in the DM's ear. You're like, all right, so here's what you got to do, dude. I
Right.
don't care how you do it. This is what you got to do. You need
Having
you need to
having
cover
the
1, 2, and 3.
yeah, having the like a lot of the way that I've been writing stuff, like a lot of stuff that I'm writing now is like is horror or horror related. It's like the same kind of thing with mystery, where I mean the two are often very intertwined. Like horror
Yes.
often leans on the necessity of some kind of mystery, um, but there always needs to be kind of like, here's the part that you're reading because this is the part that you're running for your players. And then the next paragraph is, hey DM, this is what's happening. Like this is the background for this room. Like here's a rumor about what's happening around town. Next paragraph. Okay, so this is what's happening around town. Like this is for you to know so that you know how to like present this, how to kind of work with this going forward, and like how this might impact them like over time.
Because the DM should not be figuring out the story along with the players.
Right. Hopefully the DM has read the adventure or the summary or something beforehand, but just in case,
As
have those bits as you go to
at,
reinforce and
yeah,
remind them of, the various cogs
as we all
that are like
know,
in the
we've all
machine.
we've all been at a convention or a group where like whoever was supposed to be running the game cannot. And
Yeah.
everybody's there and they want a game. So you're like, "Okay, I'll do it." And they're like, "But we really want to run this game." And you're like, "Yeah. Never seen this game before in my life. Give me like
Gonna have
give
to
me like 5."
Yeah, give me just 2 seconds. I just need to let me at least read the title. I need to know something about what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah. I am fortunate that I am a incredibly fast reader. So I've definitely had those instances in conventions where I've been handed the module. I'm like, give me like 2 minutes, like literally two. I'll start reading it, and like I'll be reading a couple of pages ahead while we're going on with the adventure.
Right.
Not great, but you know,
It's
um,
like I need one role play amongst yourselves for just 1 second. I need to figure out what the hell I'm doing.
um, and though, like, while I would never recommend stuff like that, it does definitely kind of help you as a designer to learn like the importance of like I really like the Adventurers League thing of at the beginning. You have a here's some background to the thing. Here's what happens in part 1, part 2, part 3.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you got that one page, you've read it, you're like, "Okay, I know where I'm starting, I know where I'm ending. Do I know what we're doing in between?
We'll
No,
figure it out.
I've never seen this, but I know the important points and we're going to hit
Yeah.
them." And like obviously that doesn't fit with all kinds of adventure design. Like a lot of things like the organized play format doesn't work for everything. There's
Yeah.
a reason why it's not used in everything. So, a lot of times like at the beginning, you don't want to have that whole like one page where it's like here's the story.
Mm.
Because you do want to leave a little bit of something like, you know, for everyone to kind of figure out like as you go. Um, but then the other thing is like other than leaving like the story, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of um, have the world building as you go as well, and that's like another aspect where I mean, not even just in adventures, but just like world building as you're going through like a campaign setting. Like the world starts out as this fairly simple concept of okay, so with Eberron, for instance, right?
Mm.
there's a city. It's a city of towers. It builds upwards. There's this area out in the middle of the world, filled with mist and weird shit. What happened to cause that? We're not really gonna tell you. You figure it out, or make it up.
I like that aspect of Eberron a lot, actually. The way
And
it's just like, oh, here's a bunch of suggestions, but who knows, you
yeah,
know?
and then they're like, and then these are the major races, and okay, that's all you know at the beginning. And then you're like, okay, I'm hooked. I got it. And as you go, and you get more detail on each of the things, like you get more detail on Sharn, and you're like, man, there's a lot going on here. There's
Yeah.
a whole like there's societies upon societies and everything, and the more you dive into it, the more like you suddenly have like your house. This is my house, and I identify with it.
Hmm.
And it just kind of becomes like a I don't know, you feel very attached to it. And I think that's like an excellent way of, not only doing like a campaign book to where you feel really drawn in and attached to the world, but like an adventure as well, where you're bringing in these little things and you're building upon it and you're layering it. And the players, like, by the end of it, they have strong feelings and opinions, and they're like going forward. Like, I,
The the 5e book has such a good it does such a good job of making sure there's about 10 different ways that um, each player has skin in the game. Like the group patrons, like so to like here's the reason your party's together, which, you know, 5e has not always done a great job of like why are we all together again? Like the whole concept of like how is this evil-ish rogue with this paladin? Like there's a lot of systems that do a very, very good job of explaining like no, this is specifically why. Um, D&D like not doesn't always, but the group patron can be a really good framework for that. Um, the different houses can be really good ways for you to be like, oh yeah, I'm part of this world because I'm part of this house, you know, or like, oh, I'm connected to the mysteries of the world because I've got like I've got a dragon mark, you know, basically
yeah.
is one of the big things.
And like, yeah, I'm in with this rogue, and he's like this house that I'm opposed to, but it's okay that we're in, right? Because like I'm learning stuff from him. It's like, I'm like we're like undercover, and like
Hmm.
ostensibly we're doing this thing together, but really we're just like spying on each other. And yeah, it
Yeah,
ties you in. You're like, we're doing this mission together to learn about each other. And
yeah,
also, like,
I love all
there's a
the
cool
deaths and
thing,
stuff.
and I'm getting it because that house isn't fuck them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I think Eberron specifically does an excellent job of doing that. Kudos again to Keith Baker for
Yep.
building a fantastic world. So when you're doing your world building, like how do you do those tie-ins? How do you make people feel connected to your worlds?
Um, I'm like with I can't do a lot of like details. I can't do like details about stuff I'm doing right now, but like
When I'm
and
redacted.
but like a general thing that I'm doing for some stuff right now is like I've got this like an outline that's been written for me of like really specifically like what kind of events are happening each step of the way, but I need to fill in all the details.
Right.
And a
No,
lot
that
of
makes
times
sense.
what I do with that is like in the example I can't be too specific about. I've got there's like I know who like the villain is, and
Hmm.
everything between the villain and the players is this wide open field for me to populate.
Right.
And um, a lot of that um, comes from I'm trying to like I try to develop like a personality of a place.
Hmm.
And I think side characters are incredibly important.
Yes.
The kind of NPCs who maybe will become important to certain events, like in the main story. Um, but also, I have a couple of like NPCs and stuff, like in the stuff that I'm writing now, um, that aren't at all important to the main story, and I think that is actually really essential. You need to have characters in there who exist to
exist.
give personality to a place. Yeah, who aren't just convenient. Oh, thank God we've got, oh, we can't get through this door. Thank God there's just like a random key maker. I don't know why I'm doing Matrix references. Thank God there's a random key maker who lives here, who we met earlier and helped, kill rats in his basement or something. It's like, no, like people who
Thank God
have
there's rats in the basement, so we have a reason
yeah,
to go down there.
right. Like people who have secrets and personalities and even like personal crises and things like that. And sometimes those won't even be problems that the players can necessarily solve
Oh no.
or engage with, but it gives them an identity, and that gives an identity to the world and the place.
Yeah,
That's kind of the approach I'm doing right now
like
for like a project.
you can have someone at the bar and they're there and they're having a really down on their down on their lifetime, and you can chat with them and they're telling you all about how their kid ran away from home because he was upset with like some political stuff going on in town, and you're like, does he want us to go find his kid? No, he just wants to fucking complain to you about it.
He, he wants to he wants to complain and maybe get another drink, but
But in the meantime, you also just learned all of this stuff that this kid thought was wrong with the politics in town, and why he's just like, fuck this place, I'm out. And you're like, cool.
and like maybe the complaints that his kid had or whatever about the way the town is run, maybe that's kind of related to something that the adventurers are doing in town. Like maybe that's related to some larger plot, but it's like,
You know,
but you're not gonna like find that kid later. You probably just won't find that kid
you'll
later.
never
That
find the
kid's
kid.
probably
He's
left.
gone.
Yeah,
He was tired. But
good for
later,
him. Like
later when you're doing something, you're gonna remember, oh man, that kid said that these guys have been blackmailing people, and this woman's being kind of cagey about why she's doing this. Maybe we want to see, like, is someone making you do this, lady? Does
right.
someone have dirt on you? And you're like, and then like she breaks down crying, and she's like, yeah, they've kidnapped my husband, and they're making me do all these things, and you're like,
Oh, there it is. That's the family member. We can save that one,
you can save
right?
that
We can
one.
save the husband.
Go
Okay.
get the
Cool.
husband,
Cool.
yeah, and also kill these blackmailers or something.
Right.
There's your tie-in. And I think, yeah, like you said, that's great world building, because like that information, like the guy's kids run away. What are you doing about it? Sorry, dude. Yeah, that sucks. You want a drink? You need a drink. You look like you need a drink. Yeah, that's what you're doing about his problem.
We're given this advice, and somewhere a DM's gonna pull that exact thing, and the party's like, no, 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 no. We are not doing a single thing until we find this kid. And the DM's like, I can't believe I listened to these people on stream. I cannot believe I listened to what they told me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, your mileage may vary with your party,
Yeah.
but having not necessarily red herrings, but
Mm.
just like we're
And
looking
like
we're
I
looking
I
we're looking
like
for an albatross, and we found
yeah.
we found a stork. You don't need it at all.
Yeah, it's just a chair. Yeah, exactly. It's just a chair. Um, I like
It's never just a
the
chair, Alan.
concept. I like the concept of letting players understand that they exist in a world that has more problems beyond the one they're trying to solve. That they don't have necessarily the time, the energy, or the agency to solve every single little problem. Oh,
And
but like giving them the agency to solve like the important problems, or to like address things in certain ways, like lets them know that there's a world to experience that is bigger than what they will get to interact with
yeah, and
in a lot of
I don't
ways.
want to say that's something that the Rhyme of the Frostbane storyline does well, because it's not very well explained at all. But at the beginning, like, everybody knows there's this big curse.
Mm,
But what are you as a level 1 character able to do about it? Jack shit, right?
yeah, it's all like local problems that you're dealing with.
Yeah, so you know that there's this thing going on in the world, and yeah, you want to solve it, but you know also that like I can't fight a god.
I can't even get to the next town without being attacked by wolves and nearly dying. Like, what am I gonna do?
So you know that you need to go on. You need to focus on stuff that you can solve, and learn as you go so that maybe eventually you'll find that one thing, that one piece of knowledge, and hopefully these 12 magic items, if you're fighting a god, that will let
Right.
you fight the god.
That'll let you solve the problem down the road. Yeah.
Or you can be, your tier 1 party. You come into a village and there's a blue dragon destroying it, and you're like, is this how we start 5th edition wizards? What am I supposed to do about this? Nothing. But yeah, there are those are both real
I'm
examples.
the number of players who are probably like, yeah, we can. Well, yeah, I mean, if there's a dragon there, obviously they wouldn't give us a fight we can't take. We're D&D adventurers, and then and that's how the whole party died.
To be fair, everybody who started in Horde of the Dragon Queen with that fight and didn't realize you weren't supposed to kill the dragon.
Yeah,
The rules for 5th edition weren't written when they wrote the book.
it was a little up in the air. Yep.
So
Yep. I've played through the first part of Or the Dragon Queen, and that one's it's a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
so take heart. Even professional designers who get paid to write a whole adventure for a system that's not finished yet, throw parties problems that they literally can't solve.
They literally can't solve. Yeah.
I believe what my first party did was we see the dragon and we're like, we must be going.
Mm. Oh, this town's screwed. Actually, we'll come back.
And then our
tomorrow.
DM was like, "Wait, no, hold on. We have to go into the town." And I'm like, I'm failing to be convinced.
We could, do some relief efforts like tomorrow.
Yeah, let's
This is not happening actively.
Let's find a nice cave, camp out, go by tomorrow, and see what we can help them salvage. No?
God. Yeah, my kobold monk got beat down by that dragonborn in that intro. Still haunts me to this day.
I was a sorcerer, so you know how many hit points a level 1 sorcerer has? About as many as a level 1 wizard, everybody.
Yep.
So I was like, I go, and
What do you do?
And you said there was a rain barrel, right? But DM's like, yeah. Is there a lid? Yeah, there's a lid nearby. I'm gonna climb in it and put the lid on.
And the rain barrel. Yep.
What? You heard me. I am a smart and intelligent tiefling who knows when to fold myself into this rain barrel. But yeah, so setting up encounters to where like there's stuff that you can realistically do. But also setting those things where you have your players know that like this is a problem for future me.
Mm-hmm.
Or future somebody else,
or future somebody else. Yeah.
Not me now. Like that's a good way to world build too, as long as you make it known that it's not a pressing this needs to be solved now issue, like the dragon attack. Sorry to the people at Cobalt Press who wrote that, but it is one of the best examples of. So I have an example of what you shouldn't do.
Right. And I guess the example is don't write a campaign mode before the system's done, which is like one of those things like, what do you do? How can you help that? Like,
I mean, you can, and like literally, if they'd taken away the dragon and left the rest of it as it was, it still would have been awful. But it wouldn't have been like, all right, so we start. All right, we're done.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that they got a chance to. I think like the anniversary edition, right? They made some edits. I think like some tweaks.
Where they put it together into one book with the special cover.
Yeah, I thought that they did some.
Not to that encounter. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my thoughts too. another great Lovewood question that I like to go to. So, if you could dream project, you can work with anybody you have. You have all the budget, you have all the free time, you have the licenses and approvals to work on whatever it is you want. What are you working on? What are you
God.
creating? I know. This is a hard one.
Um,
I've changed my answer like 40 times, so don't worry.
yeah, wow. Because like I'm torn between, gosh, I wish I had the free time to like work on like the big personal project or something.
Yes. That's my current answer. Is this project with my mom.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're doing it. Like you were doing the thing. You're done. Like you've got the answer. You're doing it right now.
well, previously though, it was like, and I'll probably go back to that answer. Like, I want to work on a thing with Ed Greenwood and have some Ed world building into my world
Hmm.
because I love his world building. We're not gonna put any ladies in it though. No ladies. That way we don't have to describe them.
Oh, yeah.
It's just all men for no particular reason other than
No
that.
no reason whatsoever. Just don't worry about it. No questions asked.
But yeah, his world building is great. His description of women is not. Um, but anyways,
Yep, I'm over it. Okay, we're good.
was it you that was trying to read the novels? It was somebody on Twitter was trying to read the novels.
No, I've
Okay.
never tried. I'm
Oh
not.
god, I can't remember now. I'll have to remember. If it was you and you're watching and you want to be on the show and talk about your attempts to read the novels, we can
That would
have.
be a good episode. That'd be a
Uh,
good one. Good in like a painful way. Um, man, there's just like so many. Like one of the things that I'm working on now is like a project I never would have imagined existing
mm-hmm.
this time last year, and I honestly cannot wait to be able to talk about it because it's
Is it the one you're working on for? Was it Peterson Games?
no
Oh, it's another.
another one who I can't even tell you the
No,
publisher or anything. Even more extra lockdown.
oh, I'm so excited.
There's yeah, there it's like it kind of feels like a little bit of a dream project in some ways.
Every,
Just like the people I get to work with and like the team I get to work with and like the stuff I get to do and like the influences I get to pull from is just like just my favorite thing right now.
every project
Um,
a little bit is like your dream project because you're
yeah,
like,
no,
I
honestly,
can't believe I'm working with these people.
yeah. I guess if I had to give an answer for like something I'm not currently doing right now, boy, I kind of want to work on the Alien RPG a little
That's a
bit.
great one. Like, um, the Alien RPG, that's just such a great world, though, already. So you have all the stuff going on that everybody knows about from the
Mhm.
movies and stuff. But then, like, there's still so many questions that aren't answered, and you can just answer those however you want.
And like that, I'm still. They're gonna release their first campaign, the Alien Colonial Marines Operations Manual. I think is supposed to come out. I think like a week. I think on Alien Day, I might get my PDF copy of that. Which is like a full campaign, really cool. But just like the core RPG book is such a I'm a huge fan of like every single Alien movie. I love all of them, even the ones that are like aren't. We don't talk about Resurrection, but like I still love it. I still love Alien Resurrection, even though like everyone really hates that movie. I love the whole universe, and the RPG core book is such a like such a obvious labor of love that like it completely I completely bought into it. They talk about some of the novel stuff, like novels I haven't really read many of the Alien novels, but like I know they're making references in there. They are just like unifying all the movies and stuff together.
So they did that
Um,
deep dive into the lore.
they did this such a really good deep dive, and like they're so it was so clearly written by people who know their stuff and are like you just feel how excited and they were to write about it
Yep.
to like to create that product. Um, and like Lord, I want that for me, like that, like to write with a team or something,
Where you're all
it's
just
always
so passionate.
Yeah, and like that's kind of what I have going on with this project that I'm working on right now. But like just that energy in like you can have that energy about your own personal project, but it is also really amazing to have that in a team that you're working with, where you
Hmm.
are all just bringing in all of, like everyone's kind of bringing their own ideas, and you're all just so excited about what you get to
And
contribute and see what other people are contributing,
you're
and
all
you're all kind of
bringing
on that
your
same
own
page.
ideas, but you still have like this cohesive goal. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and like everyone is like together on it, where just like everyone's harmonizing really well. It's just like, the best experience.
And then, yeah, Alan Tucker obviously agrees. He wants to work on the project MT Black wanted you and him to work on someday. And Alan is all about those team projects and that, shared goal.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is either, Joe, but like, MT, Alex, and Alan sold. So MT, figure it out, man.
it's been a couple of years since we were talking about that one. We'd have to like
Yeah.
really
Oh, a couple.
sorry.
Yeah, outside world.
Yeah, outside world feeling really loud. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Um,
A solo adventure with a certain drow character. Yeah.
a certain popular drow character.
Who's I was like to say name rhymes with something, but I all of a sudden was like, what rhymes with that?
Nothing rhymes with that.
Nothing.
Maybe on purpose.
Uh, no, nothing.
Nothing. Orange. Yeah, I was actually gonna make an orange joke.
I Oh, yes. Nothing rhymes with orange. One day somebody is gonna create a word to rhyme with orange just so that everyone else is wrong.
It's the internet. We could have solved this problem years ago.
Yeah,
Honestly,
but it's funnier this way.
it's funnier this way.
But yeah, no, that big team project, that big group project. Like I would love to work with a small-ish group, so like half dozen people
Mm.
or so, on just creating like a shared world. That's like, I guess, my next dream project after what I'm current. I'm still a little just like awed that like I'm working on a D&D thing with my mom. Because I just taught her how to play D&D a couple years ago.
Mm.
Um, this all kind of snowballed. I taught her how to play D&D. She made a character, and then I had an assignment to write something. And instead of giving me an outline, like most people do when they give you an assignment, they were like, "Yeah, you need to write a thing." And I'm like, "Okay, what do I need to include? Like certain NPCs? Are we tying into some? It needs to be in the Border Kingdoms. All right, I got that. But like, what do I need to include?
Some anything else.
It needs to be in the Border Kingdoms." And I'm like,
Great.
and so I was complaining about the openness of
Mm.
of the contract to my mother. She's like, "Are you writing about my D&D character?" And what are you gonna say then? No.
I would have said no.
Well, our D&D character was kind of cool already. He was this little guy who just kind of ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and everything has gone horribly for him since then. He just misses his family and wants to get back there and doesn't know how he ended up as an assassin. It's fine.
It's like a what is this, like a Mr. Magoo of killing people? Whoops! Like just stumble into it and like, oh, one of the targets.
Needed to get some money so that he could eventually get halfway back around the world to his family, and somebody gave him a project and he didn't realize that it was to kill somebody until they were like, dispatch of him. He's like, okay. And then, and then he gets there and the guy's like, the only way you're going to dispatch of me is if you murder me. And he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, huh. This really narrows down my choices, so thank you.
And then he killed somebody, and then at that point you're like, well, I've already murdered one person, why not do it again? Money was good.
That's an incredibly D&D character thought chain of thoughts.
you know but the money in D&D for assassinating targets is pretty good.
It's
They give
honestly
you
really good.
hundreds of gold. Most people never see hundreds of gold. So
It's true. If they didn't want you to kill people, they wouldn't make it so profitable.
honestly,
unfortunately.
And so, I wrote that adventure, and then it got published, and she started telling all her friends how there was a thing about her D&D character, and they're all like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That it sounds great.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And then we got into kind of like she started collecting gnomes because he's a gnome, and all of her garden gnomes have life stories, and now we have a world.
Oh my god. Oh.
I
Wow.
I know the places D&D projects come from.
Right.
I I mean, Greg Marks writes about his cats.
Write what you know.
And sometimes Greg Marks' adventures about his cats are terrifying. Horror with cats. So
Oh yeah. Oh, always horror with cats.
they are indeed the original Eldritch horrors.
Hmm.
Sometimes you piss into the void and it pisses back at you.
That's the
Um,
truth.
yeah. But on that note, though, we have reached the end of our hour.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, we have. You weren't kidding when you said that we would just kind of it would just kind of just be up at some point.
I know. So, do you have any projects that you can talk about that you want to promote, like your Kickstarter that you've been involved in? And then tell everyone where they can find you on the internets.
Yeah, so I'll be quick since we're at the
Oh,
end of
you're
time here. Uh yeah, so the thing I can talk about is I'm gonna be on a Kickstarter with Poison Potion Press. The project is called Eldritch Sands. I think the Kickstarter is launching right at the end of this month, unless something's changed. So it should be out in the next couple of weeks. It's a really cool D&D based kind of like like kind of sci fantasy um, distant future, and like the world is it's like a post climate collapse, and now everyone it's basically nothing but barren desert wasteland and people living in like these advanced shielded societies, and there's all these weird eldritch influence type things happening that are like corrupting machines and warping creatures, and so it's a little bit science fiction, a little bit like horror stuff going on.
I posted
um
the mobile link to the Twitter by accident, but this time instead, I'm actually just gonna post the Kickstarter link now that I found it.
Um, so done some writing stuff for it already. There's a bunch of previews and stuff up. It's a really cool project. So I hope people get a chance to check it out. Um, and I can't legally talk about any of the other stuff I'm working on, so that's it.
I
Um, it's the life.
Yeah.
It's yep.
And where can they find you on the internets?
So best place to find me is on my Twitter. It is at a Clippinger. Um, it could be at a different Clippinger, but it's just at a Clippinger instead.
You never know which one you're gonna get. And that does have two P's as below his name, unlike the first time I typed it and was staring at it for 5 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong. But yeah, so that's also in the chat now, linked to the Twitter. And on that same Twitter, you can get the link to his website where you can purchase the things that he has created. And all of that is also in the guest information on my website where I've moved it to live because there were too many people to put on the Twitch thing. It had become
A
cumbersome.
lot.
A little bit cumbersome. So relocated all that information. And as always, everybody, you can find me here every week on Sunday afternoons at 4 p.m. for the Designer's Den. You can find me here some Sunday evenings, once a month, including next Sunday. I'm hosting the Baldwin HQ chat show. And you can find me technically here, but not visible, hiding in the background as the voice of Jod, because it's a GIF. The voice of God, because it's actually a GIF, everybody, to Jeff Stevens. On whatever Monday night of Jeff's choice that he can line up guests, hopefully more than 3 days in advance next time. uh, yeah, Jeff. Um, for Jeff Talks RPGs. But speaking of the Designer's Den, I've got an excellent guest list coming up, including such hits as Eric Garnier and I'm bad at this. Alan Tucker himself, Allison Wang, Sadie Lowry, Josh Simmons, Steve Pankatai, Kat Evans, Latia Jaquise, and Steven, the bad DM, whose last name I haven't put in my calendar yet, so I'm just gonna keep saying it like that.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, I booked out through the 20th of June, so if you are interested in being on the show, you can find me on the social medias by typing my name into them. It's just Jenny Loveday all over the place, everybody. Sorry. Yeah, Googling myself is weird now. But yeah, so that is it for this episode of the Designer's Den. Until next week when we'll be back with Eric Darnot talking about some cool zine stuff. Even though we're out of Zine Quest, I think, at this point in time. You know, it's never too late to have a zine. But yeah, that's it, everyone. Thank you again, Alex, for being on the show today. Until next time, everyone. Bye.